Labour Market Review 4th quarter of 2020 comprised of 3 segments: labour supply, labour demand and labour productivity, with the addition of a special article entitled Initial Review of Labour Migration in Malaysia. During 4th quarter of 2020, employed persons declined by 0.6% year-on-year to record 15.16 million persons. The employment to population ratio remained at 65.2%. Semi-skilled occupations, which accounted more than half of total employment, recording 8.86 million persons. Employment in skilled occupations was in increasing trend, registering 4.56 million persons. Meanwhile, those in low-skilled occupations decreased to 1.74 million persons. Employees made up almost 80% of total employment, composed of 11.7 million. In the meantime, on-account workers declined to 2.4 million persons. Throughout the quarters of 2020, employees showed an increasing trend, albeit at slower rate, while on-account workers continued to decline. Secondary education made up the largest share in employment, accounted for 54%, followed by those who have attained tertiary education with a share of 33%. After registering a drastic drop in 3rd quarter of 2020, persons who were employed less than 30 hours rose by 3.5%, recording 534,000 persons. Time-related underemployment rate increased to 2.4%, registering an additional of 198,000 persons to 369,000 persons. The rate of skill-related underemployment posted an increase to record 37.4%. In terms of unemployment, the number of unemployed persons in 4th quarter 2020 edged up to 761,000 persons. The rate of unemployment rose by 0.1 percentage point to 4.8%. The unemployment rate for youth aged 15 to 24 years increased to 12.7%. Among the unemployed persons, 83.3% were actively unemployed. 45.5% was unemployed for less than 3 months, while 10.7% were in the long-term unemployment, which was more than 1 year. Hence, in 4th quarter of 2020, the number of labour force increased to 15.92 million persons, while the labour force participation rate dropped to 68.5%. From the perspective of labour demand, there were 8.5 million jobs in the registered private sector, edged down by 2.4%. Filled jobs in 4th quarter 2020 comprised of 97.9% or 8.3 million, while the remaining was vacancies with 176,000 jobs. Meanwhile, the number of jobs created was 76,000. From the total number of jobs created, more than half were in semi-skilled category, while skilled category accounted for 29.3%. In overall, labour demand in private sector were dominated by semi-skilled jobs. 51.6% of total jobs were concentrated in services sector, followed by manufacturing sector with a share of 26.7%. Labor productivity, expressed as the ratio of value added per employment, declined 2.9% in fourth quarter 2020. As for labor productivity per hour worked, it decreased marginally 0.8%. Towards the end of the quarter of 2020, the spike of COVID-19 new cases can be seen resulted in declining of economic performance. Nevertheless, labor market situation was stagnant with modest recovery, with number of employment increased slightly, while unemployment also recorded an increase. From the demand side, fewer jobs were recorded with decreasing number of filled jobs and vacancies. Yet, in the midst of economic downturn, there were 17,000 jobs created. Looking at the 2021 situation, the number of COVID-19 new cases continued to register a spike. Though, to balance the economic and health interests, most economic activities were allowed to operate with the compliance of strict standard operating procedures. Additionally, government has initiated Perlindungan Ekonomi dan Rakyat Malaysia Permai to support the survival of businesses. Therefore, it is hoped that it may ease the pressure on the labour market. Taking into account the permission to reopen the businesses coupled with various incentives provided, it is foreseen that the Malaysia's labour market in early 2021 will remain in a challenging situation. Labour market situation for the year 2020. Based on the quarterly average of 2020, the number of labour force increased to 15.8 million. The number of outside labour force registered 7.3 million persons. The number of employed persons was 15.1 million, while unemployed persons recorded 711,000 persons. Total number of jobs in private sector declined 204,000, recording 8.5 million in 2020. Filled jobs comprised of 97.9%, while vacancies rate was 2.1%, with 176,000 vacancies. Jobs created in 2020 accounted for 73,000, which majority were concentrated in services sector. Labour productivity expressed as value added per employment fell 5.4%, while labour productivity per hour worked increased 3.4%. Total hours worked declined 8.7% to 32 billion hours in 2020. Labour Market Review fourth quarter of 2020 features an article entitled Initial Review of Labour Migration in Malaysia. This article reviewed the increase of labour migration in Malaysia throughout 30 years period and the sectoral distribution in line with economic transition. The review found that reformed economic structure had resulted in rising demand for labour. Nevertheless, the growing numbers of skilled labour supply among the citizens were not able to meet the demand by industries which were largely concentrated in semi- and low-skilled jobs. This article also discussed the positive side of skilled labour immigration or expatriates, whereby the country would benefit from the knowledge, talent and experience of these personnel.